In the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mongols built the biggest land empire ever. The Mongolian Empire went from China's coast to the Himalayas' northern border, covering much of today's Middle East, from Persia to the Black Sea and parts of south-central Russia, Ukraine, and Europe up to Vienna. They traveled on foot, in wagons, and famously on horseback. By the late 1200s, when they reached the eastern borders of Ukraine, some of their armies had around 100,000 soldiers. However, it wasn't just their large numbers that made the Mongols powerful. They also used terror as a strategy. This frightening approach began with their first great leader, Genghis Khan, who, while infamous in some places, is still a national hero in Mongolia today. His legacy left an indelible mark on history, shaping the world in ways that are still felt today. Before Genghis took charge of all the Mongol tribes, their society was harsh, much like the Vikings on the other side of the world. The Mongolians were known for violently dealing with their own people, especially those in power or aspiring to lead. They believed that by eliminating other family members, their own children would inherit their positions and authority. Genghis, whose real name was Temujin, meaning of iron, faced a tough life. Similar to a Soviet leader much later, he had to be strong and resilient. Unlike Stalin, Temujin's life took a dark turn at the age of 14 when he killed his half-brother. The story goes that Temujin's older half-brother, Bator, selfishly ate a fish Temujin had caught for the family's dinner, refusing to share. This led to resentment, particularly from Temujin and his younger full brother, Kasar. Temujin, fueled by a mix of personal grievance and ambition, secretly followed Bator, patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. Using one of the famous Mongol recurved bows, he shot Bator, ending his life. Another version of the tale suggests that Bator, as the eldest brother, became bossy, giving orders that fueled resentment among his siblings. In this version, Temujin seized on Bator's greed as a pretext to eliminate him and assert control over the clan. It wasn't a surprise or anything strange. When Bator, the boy's mother, learned about the death, she basically scolded her son who had committed the murder. Life was tough during the time of Genghis Khan, who lived from around 1162 to 1215 AD. Genghis didn't become the leader of all the Mongols until he was about 44 years old. However, at the age of 20, he was already an emerging military leader in charge of his own clan army. One of the first things he did with that army was seek revenge for his father's murder. Prepare yourself. There's a lot of violence in the story of Genghis Khan and the Mongols. Temujin's father was killed by a group of Tatars with a troubled history. The Tatars were pushed west by the Mongols, settling in southern Russia, Ukraine, and Crimea. Later, they were mass deported by Stalin for resisting his commands. Centuries earlier, they had angered another leader, Genghis Khan, whose father was poisoned by the Tatars at a wedding. 11 years later, Temujin found himself facing the main Tatar army and their camp. In a fierce battle, he defeated many of them and captured thousands, men, women, and children, as punishment for the murder of his father, Yesugei. Genghis Khan, as he came to be known, issued a grim order. All individuals above a certain age were to be killed. To demonstrate, he casually walked over to a wagon, marked a height of 3 feet on a wheel, and carried out the brutal directive. Almost everyone perished, except for a few young children and infants spared from the ruthless act. Interestingly, ancient China once witnessed the construction of pyramids, not by the Chinese themselves, but by the Mongolians under Genghis Khan's command in 1215. These eerie structures stood outside Beijing, serving as a stark warning to those who dared to oppose the Mongol Empire. Following a relentless 3-year siege by Genghis Khan, the people of Beijing resorted to cannibalism for survival. However, their fate was sealed, as Genghis Khan ordered the execution of tens of thousands. Travelers and diplomats recounted a haunting sight in the distance, pyramids made not of stone but of human skulls, towering perhaps 50 feet high or more, a grim testament to the merciless power of the Mongolian conqueror and the horrors inflicted upon those who resisted. In Genghis Khan's time and afterward, the Mongols had a routine when dealing with an enemy city. They would send a message that basically said, Give up, and you'll be okay. Resist, and we'll have to harm you. Historians estimate that during Genghis Khan's relatively short rule, about 5 to 10% of the world's population suffered casualties due to his campaigns. It's crucial to note that the Mongols relied on horses and primarily used swords and bows in their warfare. The battles were up close and violent. To illustrate, just like how a female black widow spider consumes the male after mating, Genghis Khan's daughters, in a somewhat comparable fashion, played a strategic role in their marriages. In the context of the Mongols and their steppes allies and enemies, the marriage practices resembled those of medieval Europe. Daughters were treated as assets, married off to solidify alliances or bring an end to conflicts. Genghis Khan's daughters, being numerous, held the power to conclude one dynasty and inaugurate another. Marrying into the family of the great Khan was a big deal. It made the groom and his family very important and powerful, but this power didn't last long. See, to marry into Genghis's family, a tribal ruler had to give up all his other wives, and once married, the groom couldn't become the ruler. It was Genghis's family that got the throne. No one else could even try to be in charge. The groom, after getting married, was sent to lead in battles, and sadly most of them didn't make it back. So, who ruled while Genghis's sons were growing up? It was Genghis's daughters. They took over, and everyone knew they were taking orders from their father, Genghis. Before Genghis Khan's time, there were the Khwarazm people. They lived in the area north of what is Iran today, just below the Caspian Sea. The Khwarazm had a strong and smart empire with cool buildings and math skills, but Genghis Khan happened. He came and everything changed. Sadly, not much is left of the Khwarazm civilization now. When Genghis Khan's armies neared the capital of Khwarazm, he tried to talk things out peacefully. He sent some representatives to discuss matters with the Khwarazm leaders. Unfortunately, the Khwarazm leaders made a big mistake. They got scared and cut off the heads of the Mongol diplomats, thinking it might be a trick. Then, to make matters worse, they killed another group of Mongols who were trying to make peace. Well, you can imagine that Genghis Khan, also known as Temujin, wasn't happy about this. In fact, he was really mad. He sent a huge army of 200,000 soldiers, and they pretty much killed everyone they could find in Khwarazm. Genghis Khan didn't stop there. He told his soldiers to destroy everything: castles, farms, houses, you name it. They missed a couple of faraway mosques, but otherwise, Khwarazm was practically wiped out. The Mongols even ground their bones into dust. Later on, when the Mongols came back, Genghis Khan went to great lengths to erase any trace of Khwarazm. He diverted a river to cover up everything. If anyone made a bad decision when dealing with Genghis Khan, like the Shashi people near Khwarazm's borders, survival was pretty much impossible. Genghis Khan was not someone you wanted to mess with. The Mongols conquered the Shashi, and Genghis Khan thought they'd help him fight the Khwarazm. However, they didn't send any troops, which made Genghis angry. In response, he sent an army to deal with the Shashi, and everyone was killed. People wouldn't even know about the Shashi if stories about them hadn't been kept alive by the people around them. Many were killed, and the Shashi language disappeared for hundreds of years until historians found carved stones with an unknown language. After studying them, they realized that these stones were the only remnants of the once thriving Shashi culture. However, the Shashi might have had the last laugh. During the battle, Genghis Khan was thrown from his horse and died in 1215 from his injuries. His body was taken back to his homeland for burial. It's said that he was buried with so much treasure that many nations would be interested in finding his grave. Yet historians now believe he was buried in a simple Mongol grave to avoid tempting grave robbers. To keep the location secret, every person who witnessed or knew about the grave was killed. The Mongols believed that the Khan of Khans would rise again to lead them if the grave remained undisturbed. This belief was deeply rooted, and they took extreme measures to ensure the secrecy of Genghis Khan's resting place. If you found these historical stories intriguing, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Explore the hidden tales of history with us.